is about opening up the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever those possibilities are. It's a time for you to not sit in judgment of yourself. It's a time for you to not criticize what comes to your mind, and not to reward yourself either for what comes to mind. It is you being still and allowing your brain to do what it wants to do and to go where it wants to go. I think it's important for us to understand that brainstorming takes place throughout the entire writing process. It's not just something you do at the beginning to think, oh, what do I want to write about? It's something that you can constantly go back to. It's not a linear process, but you can use brainstorming at any juncture in the writing process. Outlining for me, I think there are different ways to use it where it can be beneficial. If you're more free thinking, and like I am as well, I just kind of write from the hip sometimes. I don't really do the outline. However, I'm going to recommend that people kind of learn how to outline and maybe use it as an editing tool versus a writing tool. Because one of the issues that I see in a lot of indie self-published authors is the lack of development of their ideas and their characters. So the content is good. It's something you really want to read. I find myself a lot of times reading it going, I'm asking too many questions that aren't answered. And they're not cliffhanger type things like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen in the next book. It's questions I shouldn't have to ask myself about your character, because you should have already I should be able to see it in the writing, not even just the character, but the setting, those little things. And I think outlining helps you to do that if you use an outline to edit. So then you can go back and ask yourself, what is the introduction component of my book? What is the setting? Where does this story take place? And then you should be able to look in your manuscript and find those things. You should be able to say, okay, what's the body of this? What's the fullness of this? What's the climax of my story? Where does this thing shift? You should be able to ask yourself those questions. And if you can do a backwards outline, then you'll be able to see where you've missed. I mean, I've read so many really good indie self-published books where I'm like, but you said your grandmama did this, but you didn't tell us about your grandmama. Like, your grandmama said, but where's she at? Why she like that? Who is she? Where's she? Whoa. And it's pertinent for the understanding of the book. It's not just extra info. You're like, oh, this would have been so much richer if you would have told me about your cousin. Outlining forces you to structure your thoughts. And a lot of self-published authors don't want to do that because it's hard work. It's the part of writing that we don't really like. We just want to just write whatever and everybody just feel it, which is great. So a lot of self-published authors have great content, but the conventions of their writing are lacking. And I think outlining will help you to, develop those ideas and make sure you have the good stuff in there. Make sure it flows. There needs to be some fluidity in the storyline. Sometimes you're over there, over here. At the beginning, like you said, it was a white truck and now they're in a black car. You're reading and you're like, what? But I can tell the author was stuck in their head. But if they would have actually bullet point some things, stepped it, they would have caught those little nuances in the writing. So I'm a proponent of outlining, but maybe for the person who doesn't want to use it to begin the process, maybe you can use it as a midway to end a process.